Okay,
Right.
so to start us off, just to show that we have all the correct files, within our project here, we have our app driver, all of our classes. Then in our resources, we have the airports and flights. For the file naming conventions, all of these are just following the assignment itself. And yeah, no extra files. So to show it compiles and runs, first I'm just going to run it through here. So you can see, compiles, runs, no problem. Next I'm going to bring up my command line just to run the jar. Okay, and as you can see, it works. So we're just going to do a quick run through of the program. So I'm just going to select any. Fine, we're going to create a reservation. Reserve. Great, and then if I type in Alice, we'll find that reservation right here. We can change it. Update. And as you can see, it's been updated. We can even change the status as well. As you can see, inactive. So next up, we're going to go take a quick look at Java documentation. So for all classes, we have the documentation here. So driver, flights, flight manager. So yeah, I think you get the point. User interface design and functionality. So for the GUI, we just followed what was in the Word doc. So it looks pretty much exactly the same.
So here, just we have all of our sort of static fields up there with our array lists for our flights and airports. And so upon the creation of the flight manager here, it calls these two methods right at the top there for populate airport and populate the flights. So then if we kind of follow those through, so we could go to either one first. Yeah.
Sure.
So here, starting with some airport info, create a scanner just sort of based around that text file, or sorry, that CSV file, and we'll read in all the way through it and basically read in the lines to generate all of the airports that we can access later through that list. Nothing too crazy there, just a file not found exception, just with a message to check your file location, all that kind of stuff. That one's pretty straightforward. And then for our next one, similar idea with the scanner where we read in the file. We have some flight codes to sort of compare against, list of airport names, and then we just sort of save variables for the names, locations, departing codes, number of seats, costs, and all those kinds of things. And we can see in our try catch block here, we read through the file, just split everything into an array, which we can sort of process then. And it also runs through a switch case there to take the first two letters of the code and turn it into a string with the proper full name of the airport. And so it'll run through there. And then we go down, and so we have sort of a flag to mark whether it's a valid code or not. And if it is, it'll then populate the variables that we had before, just with the correct numbers, or so the correct values from the array that we had split before. And then we create a new flight object and then add it to the flights array list. And so all of that sort of stored there. So now we have all of the flights accessible through this whenever the flight manager is created. Awesome. And then we can find flights. We have a few methods here. So we can find the flight by either the flight code or I believe also the airport. So we just have some search methods where we're just searching through the flights array, just using a for loop just to match, nothing too crazy there. And so we can also search for flights here, line 146, where we can search for specific ones based on the from location, the to location, and the day of the week. So just call this method, passing in those arguments. And we'll look through our flights array. And we also sort of have a find flight array here. So anything that we find, we'll add it to this array so that we can access it and display it to the user.
Next up, we're on to reservation code. So to generate a reservations code, you have it in this method right here. So as you can see, it runs through, it'll check to see if it is a local airport within the same country, and then it will throw an invalid flight code exception if it is not something that the code is looking for. And then it also generates a random number which it assigns to it and returns as a string. So to make a reservation, what'll happen is the code will run through here. It just does a bunch of checks to see if the validity of the fields is correct. If not, it'll throw the exceptions, and then it'll generate a flight code, a reservations code as we saw earlier, and then it creates a reservation and then returns the reservation as an object. Okay, and next up we're on to the find reservations. So we have two find reservations. We have one with where the user can, where we can search with either the code, airline, or name. So as you can see, this is all here, just runs through a for loop just to make sure that it's all there. And we also, one thing that we do is we bring in all of the data from save file, and if we can't find it, we'll throw a file not found exception on it. And then at the end, we return an array list. So then with the find reservations by code, here we just search purely for the code and return the exact reservation object with that code. Okay, and then we have store reservations in a random access file. That's going to be our persist method, which is right here. So we basically just create a file output stream object. We do all that, and then we again just run through another for loop on it and just write this all out. We close it, and we also have our exception checks right here. So to modify and or cancel a reservation, we have it linked up to the is active field. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're just going to check to make sure that it either is or isn't active, just this status box right here. And so depending on whether it's active or not, that will modify or cancel the reservation on that.
Yeah, it's sort of checks to see if it's active, and then based on that, we'll perform certain actions to change it or sort of update that.
All right, so what'll happen here is in find reservations button, when that's clicked, we just go through like an action listener on this. We're going to search here first for everything, and then we're going to add that into our reservations model, which is a default list model, which then gets displayed to the giant text area in the center of the screen. So that's all handled here. Okay, and then for the selection component of it, okay, so the selection of the component is here, line 178. Essentially, when you select a item from the text area, it will first find the reservation by code, and then it will populate the field with those values that was saved into reservation R object. Okay, and then next up we have handling invalid flight code exception. So we'll just run through all of these here quick. So for invalid flight code exception, when called, it will send a message to the superclass, and we, just depending on which constructor you choose, it will display differently. I know, for example, in reservations manager, we call it. Yep. So right here, like I said earlier, in generate reservations code, we have it there. Handle invalid citizenship. So this will be called two or three times in the program. As you can see right here with our message, I believe first time it's called is in the flights tab. Okay, yeah, so invalid flight code. So what'll happen here is if a user leaves the citizenship blank, it will just pop up with a message letting them know that you can't do that.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say we do have pop-up messages, sort of all of those invalid entries there as well, just to let the user know.
Yeah.
If there are any errors, to make it a little bit easier.
Right, and it also includes a no more seats exception as well. This is the one place where it tracks that. Okay, and then finally we have application fields are not editable. So again, just to demonstrate that real quick, as you can see, we cannot edit the flight, airline, day, time, cost, but and then even in reservations here, so if I find Alice again, we can only edit these three and none of the other ones. Okay, and that should be it.